A war reenactment gone horribly real, underwater shoots that nearly end in drowning, explosions, actors struck by lightning, and the near death of Harrison Ford. These are 10 cursed film sets where things went terrifyingly wrong. This one, The Conqueror, 1956. This one might be the most genuinely horrifying story in Hollywood history, maybe, and it had nothing to do with anything on screen. The movie itself was already a strange idea, casting John Wayne, the all-American cowboy, as Genghis Khan, of all people. The real problem was where they chose to film it, though. The production shot on location in St. George, Utah, in the desert. What nobody seemed to think too hard about was that this location sat about 130 miles downwind from a government nuclear testing site in Nevada. The military had been detonating explosives out there just a year before cameras rolled, and the ground was just loaded with radioactive fallout. Then the director made it worse. He had 60 tons of that contaminated dirt shipped back to a Hollywood studio so they could finish the indoor scenes. The cast and crew were basically marinating in radiation for months. Out of the 220 people who worked on that film, 91 of them had developed cancer by the early 80s. That included John Wayne, his co-stars Susan Hayward and Agnes Moorehead, and the director, Dick Powell. Stalker. This Soviet science fiction film is considered a masterpiece, but what the cast and crew went through to make it was kinda catastrophic. The story is about a guide who leads people through a sealed-off wasteland called The Zone to get the right look, decayed, eerie, abandoned. The director filmed on location in Estonia near an old, crumbling hydroelectric power station. The problem was that a chemical plant was operating just upstream and it was dumping toxic waste directly into the water. If you watch the film, which I kind of want to now, you can actually see it. There's white chemical foam floating down the river. There's strange flakes that drift through the air, almost like snow in the middle of summer. It's really creepy. And none of that was a special effect. It was real industrial pollution. The crew dealt with constant skin irritation and allergic reactions throughout the shoot, but the full cost didn't become clear until years later, of course, when the lead actor, Anatoly Solzhenitsyn, the director, Andrei Tarkovsky, and his wife, Larissa, who'd worked on the film as well, all died from the same rare form of lung cancer. Film sound designer later said he has no doubt they were all slowly poisoned by what was in that water and air. The Passion of the Christ. Whatever you think of the film, what happened to Jim Caviezel on set is genuinely hard to believe. He played Jesus, and he basically went through physical torment from start to finish, both fictionally and in real life. The crucifixion scenes were shot on a cliffside in Italy in the middle of winter. Caviezel got severe hypothermia and developed pneumonia on top of it. During the whipping scenes, a stunt went wrong and a crew member accidentally hit him for real, leaving a 14-inch scar on his back. He also dislocated his shoulder carrying the wooden cross up the hill. Then came the moment, this is just nuts. While filming the Sermon on the Mount, a storm rolled in and Caviezel was struck by lightning. Producers standing about 100 feet away saw smoke coming out of his ears and his hair caught on fire on both sides of his head, and minutes before that happened, the assistant director had also been struck by a separate bolt. Both men survived without permanent injury, which is remarkable, but the sheer number of things that went wrong with this one actor, this one production, it's insane. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. Some sets have bad luck. This one had bad planning, and people paid for it with their bodies. Stuntwoman Olivia Jackson was doubling for the lead actress in a motorcycle scene. The setup had her riding at high speed toward a camera vehicle coming from the opposite direction. Mechanical crane was supposed to lift out of her path at the last second, but it didn't. The crew got the timing wrong. Crane stayed low, and Jackson hit the metal rig head on at around 60 miles per hour. The injuries were severe, as you can imagine. The impact tore through her face, damaged her spine, ripped 5 nerves out of her spinal column, and broke her ribs. She spent 17 days in a medically induced coma. Doctors eventually had to amputate her left arm above the elbow to save her life. And 2 months later, again on the same set, a crew member named Ricardo Cornelius was killed when an unsecured Humvee slid off a rotating platform and pinned him against a wall. 2 absolutely horrific incidents on the same production. It's still known as one of the worst safety records of any major Hollywood film in recent memory. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 version, the original. Director Tobe Hooper wanted the film to feel raw and real, and boy, is it? Let me just take a moment to say, if you have not seen this movie, please go watch it. It is creepy as hell. But he got the look by making the experience genuinely as miserable as possible for everyone involved. The shoot lasted 6 weeks in the Texas summer, and inside the farmhouse set, temperatures regularly hit 110 degrees. The budget was also tiny, so there was no air conditioning, ventilation, there was no extra costumes. Yeah, they wore the same freaking clothes throughout the entire shoot, unwashed in 110 degree heat. And all the bones on set, they were from real animals. Some were from roadkill the crew had picked up off the highway. Under the hot lights, the meat rotted. Actors were regularly stepping outside between takes to be sick. By the time they got to the infamous dinner scene, which took 26 straight hours to film, by the way, everyone was running on empty. Gunnar Hansen, who played Leatherface, later said he'd become so delirious from the heat that he genuinely kind of lost track of what was real and what wasn't at one point. And at some points in the shoot would be swinging his alive chainsaw at people a little too close for comfort. Fitzcarraldo, 1982. The director, Werner Herzog, has a reputation for pushing things a little too far sometimes. And this production is the clearest example of that. The film was about a man who wants to drag a steamship over a mountain in the middle of the Amazon jungle. Herzog decided to do it for real. No models, no tricks. He hired local indigenous workers to manually haul a real 320-ton ship up a 40-degree muddy slope using ropes and pulleys. It was a disaster. Ropes kept snapping, the ship broke free multiple times. Workers were seriously injured. The remote location turned chaotic. At one point, the camp was raided by a neighboring tribe and a local worker ended up with an arrow through his throat. A crew member was bitten by a venomous snake, and being miles from any medical help, it made the decision to amputate his own foot with a chainsaw right there to stop the venom spreading. Man, there were also 2 separate plane crashes near the set, injuring several people and leveling one permanently paralyzed. Herzog kept filming through all of it. The Abyss. The cast nicknamed this production a word I can't say on YouTube, but it starts with A and ends with use. Anyway, once you hear about how it was filmed, that makes complete sense. The underwater sequences were shot inside a decommissioned nuclear reactor containment structure filled with 7.5 million gallons of water. The actors spent up to 12 hours a day submerged, dealing with physical effects of prolonged diving, eyes burned raw from the amount of chlorine in the water. The most frightening moment involved Ed Harris. He was deep in the tank and his breathing helmet ran out of oxygen. The safety diver got to him, but in the panic, handed him the breathing regulator upside down. Harris inhaled water instead of air and started choking. The crew pulled him to the surface just in time, but he found out the director had kept the cameras rolling to capture the moment. Instead of immediately stopping to help him, Harris reportedly punched him in the face. Honestly, hard to argue with that reaction. I think James Cameron learned a lot before he went and shot that, whatever that Avatar movie is. They were underwater for most of that too. Star Wars The Force Awakens. Wouldn't put a modern blockbuster on a list like this. I mean, you wouldn't think to, but here we are. During filming at a studio in England, a large hydraulic door on the Millennium Falcon malfunctioned. Came down hard, and it landed directly on 71-year-old Harrison Ford, pinning him to the floor. The door crushed his leg and fractured the bone. The UK's health and safety executive later said the door struck Ford with the force of a small car and noted that it missed his chest by inches. It could easily have killed him. I mean, you'd think it would have been like an Indiana Jones movie on the list, but no, it's Star Wars The Force Awakens. The director, J.J. Abrams, ran over, tried to physically lift the door off Ford. The door was too heavy, of course, and Abrams ruptured a disc in his back in the attempt. Ford was flown out for emergency surgery, and the entire production shut down for 2 months. For a studio running on a tight schedule to release one of the most anticipated films ever made. Yes, this is when people were still getting excited about a new Star Wars movie. That was a significant disruption. But the bigger point is that, one of cinema's most iconic actors came extremely close to dying on a regular shooting day. Twilight Zone, the movie. Oh man. One of the worst. This is the worst on the list for sure. This changed how Hollywood operates in a big way. The film was an anthology. One segment was set during the Vietnam War. The scene called for actor Vic Morrow and 2 underage actors to run through a shallow river while a helicopter hovered low overhead and pyrotechnic explosions went off in the water around them. The helicopter was flying low, too low. Explosions were too powerful. The blast damaged the rear rotor, the pilot lost control, and the aircraft came down directly on top of the actors. All 3 died instantly. What came out during the investigation and trial afterward made things even worse. The director had been using the underage actors illegally. They were working past midnight around live explosions without the required permits. They were paid in cash under the table so the studio wouldn't find out as well. John Landis is the director, and producers, they were acquitted of criminal charges for some reason. Waterworld from 1995. Mad Max, except it's in the water. Before a single frame was seen by the public, this movie was already a bit of a punchline, right? The production costs spiraled so far out of control, it became the most expensive film ever made at that point. Filming happened on this massive floating set, built out on the open ocean off Hawaii, which sounds impressive until you factor in that the open ocean doesn't care about your production schedule. A major storm hit without warning and just tore the set apart. Millions of dollars in construction sank to the bottom of the ocean, and the crew had to start over. The stunt double for the lead actor ran out of fuel in a water vehicle miles away from the production and drifted alone at sea for hours before being found. The star himself nearly came off the mast of a boat when a sudden wind gust caught him while he was strapped up high. He was thrown violently through the air, barely held on. Tina Majorino played Enola, was stung badly by jellyfish on 3 separate occasions. Really annoying character in the movie, but I don't think it warrants her being stung by jellyfish. And the whole shoot was just chaotic from start to finish. And the film still got made, which in its own way might be the most impressive part of the story, because the movie is not great. Anyway, with all that said, I've been your host, James. I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next one.